Hey guys! So it's been a really long time since I've filmed, so I actually feel really awkward and unsure about this whole process. So, you know, kind of thinking on my feet and speaking, making sure that I speak concisely enough so that this video is short and to the point, which I always struggle with. Things like that kind of like are running in the back of my head right now as I film. So this is a little bit of insight for you. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about how I've read over 42 books this year. And it is currently mid-November. So that's why I say over 42, because I am pretty sure that in the next few weeks I'll be reading more and ensuring that I kind of top that number up. So to give you a little bit of backdrop, at the start of the year, I promised myself that I would read 30 books, and that was my New Year's resolution. And I stuck to my New Year's resolution because I'd been building up my reading over the past couple of years. I had started picking up reading again, I think in 2016, and I'd read maybe like 3 or 4 books. And then in 2017, I read a few more, maybe closer to 10. And I found myself developing a love for reading again. And I think that when we reach the end of high school, that's when I find that a lot of people, their reading just kind of drops off. And that happens because of high school itself, but it also continues on because you start university and you start a really busy life, and reading is one of those things that's just left behind, especially now that we have social media as such an easy, accessible platform for us just to hop onto. I find that with reading, it's something that's disposed a lot easier. So I set the goal of 30 books for the year, and that meant around 2.5 books a month. And it was gonna be a challenge in my head. And when I shared it with my friends, they were like, whoa, that's a lot of books, girl. And I was like, yeah, girl, I know. But I wanna share with you how I actually managed to hit that 30 and how I've actually gone beyond it. So what made it really possible for me, rather than an ebb and flow of reading and more direct towards continuous reading, was I gave up on social media. So I know that not everybody can give up on social media, and that's totally fine. But what I mean is, rather than just tapping into the habit of checking my phone, checking Instagram, checking Facebook, whenever I had free time, I reached out to my Kindle instead. And it definitely was a habit that I had to kick out and develop a new habit in terms of reaching out for the Kindle. So it's really funny because one of the books I read is called Power of Habit, and I'll be talking about that in my favorites video. But that really taught me to understand why we do certain things just instinctually and habitually. And so I made, every night when I went to bed, I used to check my phone. But then what I moved into doing was I would slowly ease out of that habit. So I would check my phone, but put a limit on it, put a ring on it, put a limit on it. And I ensured that once I checked my phone and there was nothing left for me to have a look at, you know, when you start just like endlessly scrolling for the sake of scrolling and there's nothing interesting anymore, I would stop, put my phone away, put it on silent, and then take up my Kindle. And I developed that habit over time, and then it got to the point where I was able just to pick up the Kindle and just launch into it, and I completely forgot about social media. So that's the first thing that I did. That's habit kicking. The second thing was I realized that when it comes to reading, it takes that much more effort to actually get into it. It's like starting a new project or starting a task that you maybe don't really want to, but you know that if you just start it and you do it for a few minutes, then it's going to be much easier and you're going to be into it. I find the reason that we are so easily tapped into social media is because it's right there in our faces. Not just right there, it actually prompts us through notifications. So as soon as we open our phone and we just start scrolling, it's mindless. It doesn't take any energy. And so if you're shifting from that to reading, of course it's going to be harder. And so that's what I do now. Every time I kind of am like, oh, I don't really feel like reading, but what I'll do is I'll just go, okay, let's just try and read one page. And if I read that one page, I often find that I'll read more pages, because once I actually do it, it's actually much easier than I think. The third thing that I learned is that you need to rekindle your love for reading. So I found that when I first started trying to read, it was hard. And that's because either the books that I was reading weren't maybe as engrossing as they could have been. I don't know what it was exactly, but it took me a really slow, steady time to actually get to this point where I'm fetching for my book or my Kindle, and I want to read. And I think maybe it's just something for me where that love for reading has grown over time, and I believe it's because I know how good reading makes me feel. It makes me feel fulfilled. It gives me a sense of purpose as opposed to, say, social media. I know I'm comparing to social media a lot, but I think that with a lot of people, like, that's why you don't read, because you're kind of on social media, right? And that was the case for me, which is why I say that. But I found that as I've discovered more books and read more widely and been more selective with the type of books that I want to read, as opposed to reading books that are just, you know, classics or whatever. That will be my next point, actually. Pretty much just ruined it. But I found that I've been able to just appreciate reading a lot more, and therefore I want to read more. There was this collection of books, which I'll talk about in my favorites video, where I could not stop reading. I chose not to go out with friends because I wanted to stay home and read on my couch instead. This is really bad, but I felt like I wanted to read as I was driving. So my Kindle was next to me on the seat next to me, and as I was driving, when I'd pull up at the lights, I'd be like, I really want to read right now. And okay, I'm gonna be honest, yes, I did do a sneak peek here and there. No, it's not good for you, and don't follow my terrible habit there. Actually, it's not a habit, it only happened like once or twice. Okay, fine, maybe 3 or 4 times. But yeah, so like, anyways, the point is that I feel like once you get into it, then it's just like a snowball, and it just keeps building upon itself. The fourth thing is find books that you want to read and that make you feel alive. So I found that this year, rather than just reading non-fiction books, which is what I did the previous years, which is fine, and they were really good because they helped me with business and with self-improvement, I found that I've tapped into a lot of fiction books, and I really enjoy fiction books because I find that often they're easier to read. Actually, not the case when it comes to classics. So for example, right up there I have a shelf, and it's a shelf full of Jane Austen and a lot of English literature classics, and I've never touched any of them because I find English literature so hard to read, especially if they're written in that time period with like Jane Austen, for example. So instead, I started to reach out for books that were, you know, popular favorites of a lot of people, could have been really short books, could have been really easy books to read, could have been books that were readable for children as well, but I found that that made the reading experience a lot more enjoyable for me. You don't have to read classics because you want to be more knowledgeable or more worldly. Like, I just don't think that's usually a good approach to reading, and I've found that people who do try to approach it that way find that they never read those books anyway. Go with your gut instinct and what you feel works for you, because reading is something that you should do for pleasure. It shouldn't be a task. I have a feeling that this video is getting long, so I think I'm going to stop it there with my 4 tips. So I hope that helps you guys, any of you who want to get back into reading or want to read more. That's how I managed to read 42 books so far. did this for 42. But yeah, 42 books for this year. I'm really proud of how far I've come on this reading journey, and I'm just so excited to keep reading and keep, oh, this is gonna sound so lame, but like keep fueling my soul, because this is what makes me feel like I'm doing something with my time. It's intentional and purposeful, and I come out a better person at the end of the day because I read. So yeah, leave your comments below if you're interested in anything that you want me to talk about in the future, and I'll chat to you guys next time. Bye.